A few weeks ago, I made a video about the lowest ranked teams to ever play in the FA Cup competition proper, and a few people suggested that I should do the same for the lowest ranked sides to have played in the second round. So here it is. And as none of the 9th tier teams I mentioned in that previous video made it as far as the second round, I give you a completely new set of teams. All of them come from England's 8th tier, and yes, 2 of them did make it as far as the third round, which I will mention in this video, but I'll also make a separate video covering the third round at a later date. With 9th and 10th tier teams only being granted access from the 1998-99 season, it was quite straightforward to figure out who the first round's lowest ranked sides were, but with 8th tier teams playing in the competition for decades before those changes, this was a much more difficult list to put together. So difficult in fact, with the constant renaming, restructuring and rebranding of leagues, that it was almost impossible to keep track of, especially as even Wikipedia stops giving out that information once you go back further than the 2000s. So to keep it simple, I'm only going to be taking this list back as far as the 98-99 season. Obviously that means I will miss several of the brilliant 8th tier clubs who made it as far as the second round proper before that, but let me know who I've missed in the comments and I'll make a separate video if there's enough teams I've missed. Amazingly, just like with my first round video, 12 teams from England's 8th tier have made it as far as the second round since 1998. One club did it twice, and 2 others made it one step further, so let's begin all the way back in 1998 with Bedlington Terriers. Bedlington Terriers were playing in the Northern League Division 1 back in 1998, and since being promoted from Division 2 in 1994, they finished in the league's top 4 for 12 consecutive seasons, including 5 back-to-back league titles, though were never promoted to a higher tier. That run of league titles ended after the club was hit with some financial issues in 2007, which eventually saw them drop back to the Northern League Division 2, where they're still playing today. Let's go back to the 1998-99 season though, because that's when the club produced their best ever run in the FA Cup. Bedlington Terriers smashed Pickering Town 11-1 in the first qualifying round, before edging past Bamber Bridge and Whitley Town on penalties, before a narrow 2-1 win at Stafford Rangers sent them into the first round proper, for the first, and to this date only time in their history. They stunned Colchester United in the first round, taking them apart in a rampant 4-1 victory before eventually going out at Scunthorpe United in the second round. The remarkable thing about that season is that, not content with their FA Cup run, Bedlington Terriers made it all the way to Wembley in the FA Vars, where they were unlucky to lose 1-0 to Tiverton Town. That 98-99 season has to be the best in the history of Bedlington Terriers, and it's probably one of the best performances ever for a team in the 8th tier.
And as Bill McLaren would say, they'll be celebrating in the Black Bull Hotel in Bedlington tonight, and the Bath.
Harrogate Railway are the only club from the 8th tier to have made the second round twice, the first of which was in 2002, where they saw a ridiculously high-scoring qualifying campaign, ending with a 4-2 win against Marine. In the first round, they knocked out 7th tier Slough Town before being knocked out at the hands of Bristol City in the second round, but they absolutely did themselves proud. 2-0 down to 3rd tier Bristol City after an own goal by Phil Walker in the first half and a Scott Murray strike just after half-time. Steve Davey made it 2-1 with 12 minutes to go, and Railway had several chances to force a replay before Christian Roberts ended the tie by making it 3-1 on 90 minutes. At the time, Harrogate Railway were playing in the Northern Counties East League Premier Division, which was the 8th tier at the time, whereas now they're in the Northern Counties East First Division, which is the 10th tier after the National League North and South's creation dropped several leagues by 1 tier. They then suffered relegation in 2019. Amazingly, they scored 32 goals across their 9 FA Cup games, and it wasn't long before they were playing in the second round once again. Yes, after Harrogate Railway, the next 8th tier team in the second round was Harrogate Railway. 5 years after their incredible FA Cup run, they repeated the achievement. They didn't score quite so many goals en route to the second round this time, but they did beat local rivals Harrogate Town, now of the Football League, in the 4th qualifying round. They did get somewhat lucky, drawing another non-league team in Droylsden in the first round proper, but after beating them 2-0, they were beaten 3-2 in an entertaining game against Mansfield Town. Just like 5 years earlier, Harrogate Railway almost clawed their way back from 2-0 down, with Danny Davidson making it 2-1 on 61 minutes.
They're back in
This time, after going 3-1 down to a Michael Balding goal, they were able to go within 1 goal again. Danny Davidson scoring again 6 minutes from time, but they were unable to find the equaliser. Once again, Harrogate Railway did themselves proud, but sadly they were unable to force a replay. Those are Harrogate Railway's only ventures into the FA Cup competition proper, and sadly their last FA Cup match to date was back in 2020, where they lost 10-1 at home to Wycombe in an extra preliminary round tie. But will we see them back in the FA Cup again soon? I talked about Chasetown in my other video, as they were one of the 12 9th tier teams to make the first round, but their FA Cup run in 2007-08 is better known. After taking Oldham Athletic to a replay just a few seasons earlier, Chasetown finally made it through to the second round after beating Team Bath in round 1. But went one better still when they stunned Port Vale in a replay to become the first ever club from the 8th tier to reach the third round. They even took the lead against Championship side Cardiff City, a lead they held onto for 28 minutes before Peter Whittingham equalised right on half-time. As expected, the Championship side's quality shone through in the second half, with goals from Aaron Ramsey and Paul Parry finally ending the Chasetown dream. But that is, to date, probably the most famous FA Cup run in recent history. At the time, Chasetown were playing in the Southern League Division 1 Midlands, and after a few promotions and relegations over the years, they're still playing in England's 8th tier today. Chasetown haven't reached the FA Cup competition proper since that famous run of 2008. In fact, they haven't managed to win a game in the competition since 2022, but they have undoubtedly got the most impressive FA Cup history of all the teams playing at their level of the game. Curzon Ashton might be challenging among the National League North's playoff places currently, but back in the 2008-09 season they were playing in the Northern Premier League Division 1 North. And although they have a great recent history in the FA Cup, their first ever run into the competition proper has to be by far their most impressive. After beating Hinckley United on penalties to reach the first round, they were drawn at home to Chichester City, then of League 2, and to everyone's surprise, they were 3-0 up with 10 minutes to play. Exeter did stage a late fight back, bringing the tie back to 3-2, but the 8th tier team held on for a famous victory. After being drawn away to National League side Kidderminster Harriers in the second round, they would have fancied their chances, especially when they saw off higher ranked opposition in the round previous. And they were holding their own until the 30th minute when goalkeeper David Carnell was sent off for a professional foul on Harriers striker Stephen Moore. Kidderminster went on to win that tie 2-0, which was a highly respectable performance for the 8th tier side, especially playing most of the game with 10 men. Curzon Ashton have reached the second round once since then, beating 9th tier Westfields after a first round replay to set up a home tie with AFC Wimbledon in 2016, but they were unable to go one step further and reach the third round. As I mentioned earlier, Curzon Ashton currently play in the National League North, so they have had a bit of a rise since that crazy FA Cup run, and these days they seem to be a bit of a regular in the competition proper, and they were beaten 4-0 in the first round this season by League 1 side Mansfield Town. Will we see them playing in the National League soon? I talked about Redbridge in my previous video, as they were one of the 12 9th tier teams to make the first round. In fact, they were one of the very first teams from that level to do so, only they were then known as Ford United. And since the days of Ford, they were one of the founding members of the National League South, but then suffered a bit of a fall through the divisions to the Isthmian League Division 1 North, which is where they were during their only run to the FA Cup first round to date. Redbridge only conceded 1 goal in the entire qualifying campaign during that cup run, then beat Oxford City 2-1 in a first round replay before being drawn away to League 2 Crawley Town, where they were totally outplayed and ended up losing 5-0. Redbridge did briefly drop back into the 9th tier shortly after this cup run, but won promotion back to the Isthmian League First Division after winning the Essex Senior League playoffs. Redbridge haven't got anywhere near the FA Cup first round since that run in 2011-12, and while they aren't showing any signs of coming back up through the divisions, they don't look like dropping back into the Essex League. Whatever happens though, Redbridge are one of the only 2 teams to have made the first round proper as both an 8th and 9th tier team, so that's definitely something to be proud of.
And Tubbs kept his cool from the spot to seal his hat-trick and earn his 9th FA Cup goal.
Like Curzon Ashton, Warrington Town are currently playing in the National League North, though it's looking likely they'll be relegated at the end of this season. Bizarrely, the similarities don't end there, as once Warrington made the first round proper, they were also drawn against Chichester City. And while they didn't race into the lead like Curzon did, they did take an early lead against the League Two side, who just couldn't break down a solid Warrington defence, who managed to hold on for a famous victory. Again, like Curzon Ashton, they were given a second round tie away to lower ranked opposition than their first round opponents in the National League's Gateshead, who professionally beat them 2-0. This is to date Warrington Town's only run into the competition proper, and other than a replay defeat to Halifax Town in 2018, they haven't come close to making it since the season mentioned. Warrington Town have reached the FA Vase final, where they lost 3-2 at Wembley to St Helens Town all the way back in 1987, and although they look like they're about to drop down to the 7th tier, they are competing at a much higher level than they ever have historically, which seemed to begin with that FA Cup run of 2014-15, as they were promoted as Northern Premier League Division 1 North champions the following year. The National League North is an extremely tough league, and Warrington have been competitive, so hopefully we'll see them back in England's 6th tier in the coming seasons. The year after Warrington Town made the second round, fellow Northern Premier League Division 1 North side Northwich Victoria followed suit. And out of all the teams on this list, Northwich Victoria have by far the most impressive run in the FA Cup, as they've not only played in the first round proper many times, but they've also made it as far as the 4th round, albeit back in 1977. They were a Northern Premier League side back then, but recent years haven't been kind to Northwich. In fact, they've slipped right down the non-league pyramid after various relegations since the early 2000s. They're currently playing in the Midland League Premier Division, which is England's 9th tier. Let's talk about their 2015-16 FA Cup run though. Then as an 8th tier side, they had to play 7 qualifying matches, which included replays against Hyde United and Chorley, before also taking National League side Boreham Wood to a replay, where they incredibly managed to win 2-1 away from home, to set up an away day at Northampton Town in the second round. And amazingly, Northwich were 2-0 ahead at Sixfields until the 83rd minute, when 3 late goals from the League Two side shattered the visitors' dreams. Northwich Victoria might have a lot of history, but they'll surely be proud of that day at Sixfields, away to a team ranked 4 leagues above them in the pyramid. Northwich Victoria have won the FA Trophy too. Back in 1984, they beat Bangor City in a replay at Stoke City, after initially drawing the final at Wembley. So as I mentioned earlier, Northwich probably have the most history amongst the clubs on this list. Will we see them back in the higher tiers of the non-league pyramid soon though? It doesn't look likely. 2019-20 was the year of the Isthmian League Division 1 sides, with 2 of them making it to the second round of the FA Cup. Division 1 North side Maldon and Tiptree won at Royston Town in the 4th qualifying round to set up a first round tie at Leyton Orient. And incredibly, the 8th tier team went to Brisbane Road and won 2-1, despite playing the last half an hour with 10 men. After going 2-0 up, goalscorer Danny Parish was sent off, and the League Two side immediately halved the deficit. But after some fine defending and an impressive goalkeeping performance from Ben McNamara, the visitors held on for what has to go down as the biggest win in the club's history. Their reward was a home tie against League Two Newport County, but despite another fantastic display from the Isthmian League side, Newport were too strong and took the victory, which rewarded them with an away day at Millwall. Incredibly, Maldon and Tiptree went on to reach the first round again the following season, and did themselves proud once again as they narrowly lost 1-0 at home to Morecambe. Since changing their name from Maldon Town in 2010, the club have remained in the Isthmian League Division 1 North, though they haven't got anywhere near the FA Cup first round since those 2 back-to-back cup runs.
Look how far he's got already. Jerome Slew, he couldn't go all the way, could he? Oh, incredible!
Chichester City's run to the second round proper is unique due to Bury being expelled from the Football League that same season. So the last team drawn in the first round draw received a bye and an automatic place into the second round proper. So despite never playing a single game in the competition proper in their history, Chichester City found themselves in the second round. With a lot of teams entering the competition meaning more games in the extra preliminary round, Chichester City also became the first ever team to reach the second round after taking part in the extra preliminary round, so their achievement really was special. In the second round, they were drawn away at League One Tranmere Rovers, where they managed to keep the score at 0-0 for over an hour before the home side scored 5 times in 23 minutes to end the Chichester dream. They did manage a late consolation goal, which is still their only goal in the competition proper, and losing 5-1 to a team ranked 5 divisions higher than you after holding them off for an hour is extremely respectable. Chichester City haven't made it any further than the third qualifying round since then, but they did win promotion to the Isthmian League Premier Division through the Division 1 playoffs last season, so they're currently enjoying their first ever year in England's 7th tier. They're actually still in the race for a playoff place, so they're excelling in their new division. Could they actually make it up as far as the National League South? Who knows, but they certainly look like a club that are in good hands. For 13 years, Chasetown were the only team from England's 8th tier to play in the third round of the FA Cup, but then along came Marine. Of course, we are going to be focusing on non-league teams who have made it to the second round, but I just had to mention that incredible statistic. And when I make the next episode, you know they'll be featured, so let's take a look at Marine's famous FA Cup run. Marine, like Northwich Victoria, have a rich history in the FA Cup compared to the other clubs on this list. They've made it to the competition proper on many occasions, even making it as far as the third round in 1993, where they were beaten by Crewe. That was before all the recent league restructures though, and although Marine have only been relegated once since 1993, the formation of the National League North and South means that their Northern Premier League Division 1 North West has been moved down a tier since then, placing them in the 8th tier for the 2020-2021 season. And although the outbreak of COVID-19 ensured that the league season was abandoned, the FA Cup continued. Marine stunned Phoenix Club Chester in the fourth qualifying round, then beat Colchester United on penalties in the first round after the pandemic caused the FA to abandon replays that season. In the second round, amazingly they were drawn at home to fellow non-league side Haverton Waterlooville, so this was a glorious opportunity to reach the third round. Marine benefited once again from replays being scrapped as they scored a stoppage time goal at the end of extra time to reach the third round, where they were famously drawn at home to Jose Mourinho's Tottenham Hotspur. Mourinho showed total respect for the side 7 leagues below his Premier League giants and fielded a strong lineup which included Gareth Bale. And despite an early scare, Spurs won the game 5-0. Marine did come close to repeating their run to the competition proper the following season, but were beaten in a fourth qualifying round replay to Ryan Reynolds' Wrexham. They did reach the first round proper again last season, then as a 7th tier team, but lost 5-1 at home to League 2 Harrogate Town. Marine are currently enjoying the best season in the club's history, as promotion from the Northern Premier League last season put them in the National League North, and they're all but certain to be playing there again next season. That's quite some rise. While the 2021 FA Cup campaign was all about Marine, let's not forget about Isthmian League Division 1 North side Canvey Island, who also made it to the second round. Like Marine, Canvey Island also have a decent bit of history with the FA Cup, reaching the first round on a number of occasions and even making it to the third round in 2002, where they were outplayed at Burnley's Turf Moor, but at that time they were an Isthmian Premier League side. In 2020, Canvey Island beat Banbury United in the first round before being given a favourable home tie against fellow non-league club Boreham Wood. But the National League side were in no mood for an upset, coming away with a 3-0 win and putting themselves in the third round draw for the first time ever. Canvey haven't gone close to reaching the competition proper since that season, but they did win the FA Trophy in 2001, beating Forest Green in the final at Villa Park. Then they lost the second final to Hednesford Town 3 years later, so the club have a strong history in the FA competitions. Canvey Island were promoted from the Isthmian First Division in 2022 and are currently competing in the league's Premier Division and the 7th tier of England's football pyramid. The final team on this list is Isthmian League Division 1 South East side Ramsgate, who made it to the FA Cup second round as recently as last season. They played 6 qualifying matches on their way to the competition proper and stunned National League side Woking in the first round despite falling behind in the first 15 minutes. Ramsgate turned the tie around, equalising just before half-time, then going in front through a Lee Martin free kick 18 minutes from time. Woking pushed hard for an equaliser, but it never came, and the Isthmian League First Division side made history. They had previously made it to the first round once in 2006, but after losing to Nuneaton Borough that season, this was their first ever appearance in the second round. And they were drawn away to League Two side AFC Wimbledon in the second round and found themselves 3-0 down at half-time after falling behind in the 8th minute. 2 quick goals from the home side made it 5-0 with more than half an hour to play, but despite looking like they were going to be on the end of a very heavy scoreline, Ramsgate managed to limit the Dons' tally to 5-0, which is how it finished. Ramsgate have narrowly missed out on promotion from the Isthmian First Division in each of the last 2 seasons. But with a 7-point lead over second place Sittingbourne with just 6 league games remaining, they look likely to finally win promotion to the Isthmian League Premier Division this season. So those were the lowest ranked teams to ever make the second round of the FA Cup. I'm aware that I might have missed some from before 1998, but as I said at the beginning of this video, it's been difficult to work out the league placings of some of those teams before then, with all the expansions and restructures we've seen in the non-league game in the last few decades. Let me know what you thought of this list. As with the teams featured in my last video, I will be aiming to visit all of these clubs at some point in the not too distant future, so let me know if you're involved with any of them. I will be making a follow-up over the next few weeks, focusing on the lowest ranked sides to ever reach the third round, so make sure you're subscribed to my channel if that interests you. I'm on the south coast currently, ready for the next part of my road to Wembley journey, which you can find in the description under this video. I'll be watching Brighton play Forest in the FA Cup quarter-finals at the Amex, and I'm really looking forward to that game. Thanks for watching.